The first time she opened that old garage door, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The lock had rusted, the hinges groaned, and a sharp scent of dust and oil rose into the night air. She had promised herself she would never step into that place again, not since the funeral, not since she closed the chapter on everything her husband had left behind. But something about that night felt different. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way the clock struck 12, echoing louder than usual, as though the house itself was holding its breath. She pulled the cord on the bare bulb overhead. The light flickered, then steadied, illuminating stacks of forgotten boxes, metal shelves bent under the weight of old tools, and a corner covered by a heavy sheet. Beneath that sheet stood something she hadn't seen in years, his old video camera perched on a tripod pointed toward the center of the garage as though waiting for her. Her chest tightened. She remembered when that camera was his pride, the way he used to carry it everywhere, documenting birthdays, family picnics, even quiet evenings at home. But this one looked different now, older, heavier, as though it had absorbed the weight of time and secrets. On instinct, she reached out. Her fingers brushed across its cold surface, sending a chill up her arm. A part of her expected it to crumble to dust, but instead, with a faint click, the camera whirred. The red light blinked once, then stayed on. She staggered back, heart pounding. That wasn't possible. This camera hadn't been used in over a decade. No one had touched it since the night he died. For a long moment, she stood frozen, her breath shallow, staring at the blinking light. Then slowly, she lowered herself into the chair across from it. The screen flickered, and an image appeared. At first, it was nothing but static, grainy gray lines tearing across the screen. Then slowly, shapes emerged. The garage itself filled the frame, the same shelves, the same boxes, the same sheet covering what she now realized was not just furniture, but something larger. She leaned closer, her pulse quickening, and then she saw it, a shadow, not her husband's, not hers, but someone else's, moving in the garage at midnight. The figure was tall, restless, pacing back and forth as though waiting for something. Each time it turned, the camera caught just enough detail to make her stomach twist. She couldn't see a face, only a vague outline, blurred but human. Her first thought was that it had to be old footage. Maybe her husband had filmed someone without telling her. Maybe it was one of his strange projects. But then, as the figure paused, something impossible happened. The shadow turned its head directly toward the lens. Her blood ran cold. The screen rippled with static again, but not before she caught a glimpse of something she could never unsee, eyes glowing faintly, unblinking, as though looking straight through her, across time, through the screen. The silence of the garage deepened. She could hear her own heartbeat, fast and desperate, and the faint hum of the camera as it continued to record. The air itself felt heavier, pressing down on her as though the garage wanted her gone. She tore her gaze from the screen, swallowing hard. Every part of her wanted to shut it off, to walk away, to close the garage and never return. But something stronger held her there, a pull, a need. Her hand trembled as she touched the camera again. The reel shifted and another image flashed across the screen. This time it wasn't the garage. It was her living room, years younger, familiar furniture in new places, curtains she hadn't owned in decades. And there, in the center of the frame, was her husband, alive. She gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. His hair was thicker, his smile faint but tired, and his eyes carried the same weight. He remembered in the final weeks of his life, but what stopped her heart was not seeing him, it was what he said. His lips moved, and though the sound was muffled by static, she could make out the words, "Don't trust him." She staggered back in her chair. Who was he warning her about? Why was this message buried here in a camera she thought was long dead? The garage light flickered again. Shadows stretched across the walls, bending and twisting until the space felt alive with movement. She turned back to the screen, desperate for answers, but the footage cut to black. For a moment, all she could hear was the low mechanical hum of the camera. Then suddenly, new words appeared scrawled across the grainy static as though scratched into the tape itself. Midnight, her breath caught in her throat. The camera whirred, the light blinked, and then silence. She sat in the stillness, unable to move. The old camera should not have worked. It should not have turned on. And yet, here it was alive at midnight, showing her fragments of a truth she was never meant to see. She rose slowly from the chair, every nerve in her body on edge. The garage no longer felt like a place of dust and forgotten things. It felt like a stage set for something larger, something hidden. And though fear clawed at her chest, one thought burned brighter than all the rest. She had to know. What else had the camera seen? It wasn't always like this. Years ago, her life had been simple, warm, almost ordinary. She could still remember the days when laughter filled the kitchen, when the smell of freshly baked bread drifted through the halls, and when her husband's voice was the loudest sound in the house, not in anger but in joy. Back then, the camera wasn't strange nor frightening. It was a companion. He used to carry it everywhere, tucked under his arm like a loyal friend. At birthday parties, he would crouch low to capture the candles flickering on the cake. On long drives, he'd roll down the window and film the winding roads, the shifting skies, the children singing in the back seat. She would laugh sometimes, annoyed at how relentless he was, about recording every little thing, but deep down she cherished it. Someday, he used to say, "We'll be glad we have all this." At first she believed him. Those tapes were their treasure chest of memories, moments preserved against the tide of time. But something changed. It started slowly, almost unnoticeably. He began disappearing into the garage late at night, the camera slung across his shoulder. She would wake in the middle of the night and hear the faint whir of reels, the soft clatter of boxes, and sometimes, though she tried to convince herself otherwise, his voice murmuring as though speaking to someone. When she asked him about it, he would smile, but his eyes would flicker. "Just work," he'd say. "Projects. Don't worry about it." But she did worry, because over time, those nights grew longer. Head emerged from the garage at dawn, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly. The warmth in his smile faded, replaced by a weight she couldn't name. He stopped filming birthdays and picnics. The camera no longer appeared at family dinners. Instead, it lived in that garage in the shadows, capturing things she wasn't meant to see. Her son noticed too, though he was younger then. He would ask, "Why does Dad stay out there so long? Why won't he let us come in?" She never had an answer. The years moved forward, but the distance between them grew. Her husband still loved her. She could feel it in the small ways, the careful touches, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. But he was guarding something, and that secret became a wall between them. Then came the sickness. It wasn't sudden, but it was swift. One day he was strong, stubborn as ever, brushing off her concerns with a laugh. A month later, he was weaker, coughing through the nights. The camera gathered dust in the corner of the garage as he fought battles his body couldn't win. She tried everything, doctors, medicines, prayers, whispered in. The dark, but nothing stopped the inevitable. In those final weeks, he grew quieter. Sometimes she would catch him staring toward the garage as though longing for it or fearing it, she could never tell which. He started writing in notebooks, scribbling late into the night, hiding papers in drawers and boxes. She didn't press him. She was too afraid of the answers. The night before he died, he called her close. His voice was faint, his words broken. "There are things you don't know, things you'll find when the time is right, but promise me," his eyes met hers, sharp and urgent, even as his strength failed. "Promise me you'll protect it from him." She had nodded, too blinded by grief to question who him was. She thought he meant the world's strangers, anyone who might exploit their family. It wasn't until later, years later, that she realized the weight of his warning. After his passing, she avoided the garage. She couldn't bring herself to face the dust-covered equipment, the boxes, the tapes. It was easier to close the door and let it all fade into silence. Her son, however, changed. At first he seemed broken by grief. He grew distant, restless, spending more time outside the house. She thought it was just his way of coping, but soon his curiosity turned into obsession. He began asking questions about the garage, about the tapes, about what his father had left behind. She tried to brush it off, tried to shield him from whatever secrets might lie there, but the more she resisted, the harder he pushed. "Dad wanted me to have it," he insisted one night. He always said, "I'd understand." But she remembered her husband's final words, the warning that burned in her memory. Protect it from him. That was the moment she realized the truth. Her husband's fear hadn't been of strangers. It had been of their son. The rift between them widened. Arguments replaced conversations. Trust turned to suspicion. She saw in her son's eyes the same hunger, the same restless energy that had once consumed her husband in the G. Rage, and it terrified her. Years passed and she tried to bury it all. The garage remained locked, the camera untouched, the tapes gathering dust. She told herself it was over, that secrets had died with him. Until that night. The night the old camera blinked back to life at midnight, whispering truths she had tried to forget. Now, sitting in the quiet aftermath of what she had seen, she understood why her husband had spent those sleepless nights in the garage, why he had guarded his secrets so fiercely, and why his final words had been filled with such urgency. The past was not buried, it was waiting. And the camera, the same camera that once captured birthday candles and children's laughter, was the key to unlocking it. But unlocking it would mean facing not only the secrets of her husband's midnight recordings, but also the truth about her own son. Her flashlight beam swept across the room, metal shelves, stacks of forgotten boxes, and then something that made her breath hitch. The garage had always felt different from the rest of the house. The living room, the kitchen, even the bedrooms carried warmth, memories of birthdays, arguments, reconciliations, and laughter. But the garage was his space. Even when he was alive, she had rarely stepped inside. It wasn't forbidden, not in words, but in the quiet way he guarded it like a vault, a sanctum where she didn't belong. Now, stepping inside after so many years, she felt like an intruder trespassing into another life. Dust coated everything. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling corners like old curtains. The air was thick, stale, carrying the scent of oil rust. And something else, something faintly metallic, almost like blood. Her light caught on a stack of boxes labeled only with years, 1999, 2001, 2005. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic, as though written by a man desperate to track time even as it slipped away. She crouched beside one and lifted the lid. Inside, rows of tapes stared back at her, their black casings lined neatly, each marked only with a date and a time. Midnight, always midnight. Her fingers brushed across one at random, March 3rd, 2004, 12:15 a.m. She placed it aside, her pulse racing, then grabbed another, July 11th, 2007, 12:15 a.m., her birthday. A shiver ran down her spine. Had he been filming her? The thought made her skin crawl, but at the same time she couldn't look away. She pulled more tapes from the box, stacking them on the cold cement floor. Dozens, hundreds, each one a fragment of nights she had never known, each one holding pieces of a story her husband had chosen to keep from her. Her gaze shifted to the far corner of the garage where the sheets still draped over something tall. She approached cautiously, heart pounding, and tugged at the fabric. Dust exploded into the air, making her cough as the sheet slipped to the floor. Beneath it stood not just a tripod, but a setup, an entire recording station. The camera she had seen earlier was only one piece. Behind it sat a table lined with notebooks, wires, reels, and monitors, all arranged as though her husband had planned to return at any moment. The strangest part was that everything was intact. No decay, no damage. It was as if time had frozen the moment he left it behind. She leaned over the table and picked up a notebook. The first page was filled with his handwriting, rushed and uneven, words underlined, circled, almost frantic. It comes at midnight. Not alone. Don't let him see. Her throat tightened. Who was him? The son? Someone else? The words bled into each other, scribbles and sketches of symbols she didn't recognize. Setting the notebook down, she turned back to the tapes. A part of her screamed to stop, to put everything back and lock the garage forever. But her husband's voice echoed in her memory, raw and fragile. There are things you don't know. Promise me you'll protect it. Her trembling hands lifted the March 3rd, 2004 tape and slid it into the player still wired to the monitor. She pressed play. The screen appeared alive, humming with static before slowly sharpening into an image. The garage appeared on the screen almost identical to how it looked now. Shelves, boxes, shadows stretching across the walls. At first, nothing moved. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the screen. Then a shape stirred. A man, her husband, stepped into frame. His face was pale, his movements jerky, as though he were afraid of something just outside the camera's reach. He kept glancing over his shoulder, whispering words too faint to catch. In his hands, he held the very notebook she had just seen on the table. He turned toward the camera, his lips moving with urgency, but before she could read them, something else appeared in the background. At the edge of the frame, in the darkest part of the garage, a second figure emerged, tall, still, watching. Her husband froze, his eyes darting toward it. The notebook slipped from his grasp, pages scattering across the floor. He backed toward the camera, closer and closer, until his face filled the frame. His lips moved faster now, his eyes wide with terror. She pressed closer, desperate to understand. His mouth formed 3 words again and again, silent but unmistakable. Protect the truth. And then the screen went black. Her heart pounded as she ripped the tape from the player, clutching it as though it might burn her. She stumbled back, her flashlight swinging wildly across the garage. Every shadow looked alive now, every corner hiding that tall, silent figure. She pressed a hand to her chest, forcing herself to breathe. The garage seemed to pulse around her, the weight of decades of secrets pressing down like a physical force. She looked at the boxes of tapes, the notebooks, the camera still humming softly on its tripod. This wasn't just a hobby. This wasn't just a man obsessing over his camera. It was evidence of what she didn't yet know. But her husband had spent years, decades, guarding something that came at midnight, something he was desperate to protect her from. And now, standing in the cold silence of that garage, she realized the truth. Whatever he had been guarding hadn't gone away. The letter wasn't polished. It was raw, the kind of words a man writes when time is running out. She had found it tucked inside one of the notebooks, folded carefully between pages of frantic sketches and half-finished notes. For a moment, she almost didn't recognize his handwriting. It was shaky, uneven, the strokes jagged, as though every word had been dragged from his soul. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. The paper was yellowed with age, creased in the middle, the ink slightly smudged, but the words were still clear enough to read. If you are reading this, it means I failed to keep it away from you. It means I ran out of time. Her throat tightened. She could almost hear his voice in those words, tired, resigned, yet urgent. I tried to shield you from it. I wanted to carry this weight alone, but it's too big for one man, and now I fear it will pass on to him. Her eyes darted to the pronoun him, her son. She already knew it. The warning from his deathbed echoed through her mind, protect it from him. She read on her chest, tightening with every line. The camera is not what it seems. I thought it was just a tool, a way to capture memories, but something changed. Or maybe it was always this way, and I was too blind to see it. At midnight, it doesn't just record, it reveals. Things hidden, things forgotten, things not meant for human eyes. Her skin prickled. She remembered the footage she had already seen, the shadow in the garage, the glow in its eyes, the way it turned toward the lens, as though aware it was being watched. At first, I thought it was a gift. I thought I was seeing truths no one else could. But the more I filmed, the more I realized it wasn't just showing me, it was pulling me in. Every night I stayed in the garage, I felt less like myself. I felt it watching me through the lens, waiting. She swallowed hard, gripping the letter tighter. His words painted a picture she didn't want to believe but couldn't deny. I made mistakes. I thought I could control it, that I could keep it locked in these tapes, but the more I recorded, the stronger it became. And now I fear the legacy I leave behind is not one of love, but of danger. Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to scream at him, to shake him for keeping this from her, for leaving her with questions instead of answers. But she kept reading. If he finds it, if our son discovers what I have hidden, he will use it. He won't see the danger, only the power. He has always wanted to be more, to prove himself. And this will consume him. Her heart broke at those words. He wasn't condemning their son out of hatred. He was afraid for him, afraid of what the camera would do to him, afraid of what it would turn him into. So I beg you, protect it, hide it, destroy it if you can. But whatever you do, don't let him claim it. For if he does, it won't just be our family that suffers. It will spread. The letter ended abruptly mid-sentence, as though he had been interrupted. The bottom of the page was smudged a dark streak across the last line. She pressed her hand against it, wondering if it had been from his trembling fingers or her own tears. She sat in the silence of the garage, the letter resting in her lap, the weight of its truth pressing down on her. The man she had loved, the husband she had trusted, had carried this secret for years, and now it had fallen to her. But she wasn't just grieving him anymore. She was grieving the son she no longer recognized. The letter had confirmed what she feared her husband's warning had been about him all along. Her eyes drifted back to the shelves of tapes, hundreds of them, each one holding fragments of the midnight truth. Her husband had spent his final years trying to contain it, documenting, recording, hiding, and now she had to decide whether to knew his fight or to end it once and for all. A sudden sound broke the silence. A creak. She froze, lifting her head toward the door of the garage. The house was quiet, but she knew she wasn't alone. Her heart hammered as she folded the letter quickly and slipped it into her pocket. The knob turned slightly. Her son's voice called from the other side, calm but edged with something sharp. "Mom, what are you doing in there?" Her blood ran cold. "Mom, what are you doing in there?" The voice at the door froze her blood. She clenched the letter tighter in her pocket, forcing herself to sound calm. Nothing, she called, her voice cracking slightly. "Just cleaning up some things." The knob rattled again, harder this time. "You never go in there." His tone wasn't curious, it was sharp, suspicious. She scrambled, shoving the open notebook back onto the table, stacking the tapes into the nearest box. Her pulse hammered in her ears. If he saw the letter, if he saw what she had discovered, she couldn't let that happen. The door creaked open before she could lock it. He stepped inside, tall now, no longer the boy she remembered, but a man carrying shadows of his father. His eyes swept the garage, pausing on the open boxes, the camera still glowing faintly on the tripod. "You found it," he said flatly. Her breath caught. He didn't sound surprised. He sounded satisfied. "I told you," he continued, stepping closer. "Dad wanted me to have this. It's mine now." "No," she said quickly, her voice trembling but firm. "This isn't yours. This isn't what you think it is." His jaw tightened. "And what do you think it is? A bunch of dusty tapes. Some old junk. You don't understand, Mom. He was trying to show us something, to give us something, and you've been keeping it from me." She shook her head, tears welling. "No, you don't understand. He wasn't giving you anything. He was warning me. He was trying to protect us." His eyes narrowed. "Protect us from what? From knowledge, from the truth." Her hand tightened around the folded letter in her pocket. "From danger, from the very thing you're chasing." He laughed. Bitterly, the sound sharp in the small space. Danger or opportunity. You never saw it, but I did. I remember those nights when he stayed out here. I heard him talking to the camera. He told me once that one day I'd understand, and now I do. He wanted me to finish what he started. No, she whispered, stepping back. That's not what he wanted. He was afraid this would consume you. Consume me, he snapped, his voice rising. Do you know what it's like growing up in his shadow, watching him obsess over this only to have you lock it all away after he died? You kept it from me, Mom. You kept him from me. Her chest ached at his words. She saw the boy he had once been, hungry for his father's approval, desperate to connect. And she saw the man standing before her now, hardened by years of resentment. This garage doesn't belong to you, he said coldly. It's mine now. The words cut deep, echoing the very warning her husband had given her. She felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to stand taller. You don't know what you're asking for. That camera, it's not just a camera. It shows things, terrible things. It takes more than it gives. He smirked, a flicker of arrogance in his eyes. Then maybe I'm strong enough to handle it. She shook her head violently. No one is strong enough, not even your father. It destroyed him. For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then why did he keep filming? Why leave behind all these tapes if they meant nothing? Her lips parted, but no answer came. She thought of the letter, of his desperate words, of the unfinished sentence at the bottom of the page. Maybe even her husband hadn't been able to stop. Maybe he had been as drawn to the midnight recordings as their son was now. He reached past her, his hand brushing against the box of tapes. She reacted instinctively, slamming the lid shut. Don't she snap, surprising, even herself with the steel in her voice. He froze, eyes locking with hers. The air between them crackled with tension. For the first time, he seemed to realize she wouldn't back down. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. No, she replied, her voice steady now. The mistake would be letting you anywhere near this. I won't let you repeat his fate. His expression darkened, frustration simmering beneath the surface. You think you can stop me? You think you can keep this from me forever? She didn't answer. She couldn't, because deep down she knew the truth. She couldn't keep it hidden forever. He was his father's son, stubborn, relentless. He would find a way back into this garage, back to the camera, back to the tapes. But for now, she had to stand her ground. He glared at her for another long moment, then stepped back. Fine, he muttered, his voice laced with venom. Keep your secrets. But don't forget, Mom, I have as much right to this as you do, more even. One way or another, it'll get what's mine. With that, he turned and stormed out the door, slamming behind him. She stood frozen, her hands trembling, the echo of his words reverberating through the garage. She pulled the letter from her pocket and read the final line again. Don't let him claim it. Her heart pounded. The fight was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. His, hers, and perhaps something even greater. Because if her husband had been right, if the camera truly revealed things not meant to be seen, then letting her son have it wasn't just dangerous, it was catastrophic. The night after their argument, the house was too quiet. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside pressed down on her chest like a warning. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. Her son's words haunted her. One way or another, it'll get what's mine. At midnight, she heard it, a low hum, familiar, terrifying. Her heart stopped. The garage. She stumbled out of bed, her bare feet cold against the wooden floor. She grabbed her robe and rushed down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. When she reached the garage door, a faint glow leaked from the crack beneath it. He was inside. She pushed the door open, and her worst fear unfolded before her. The old camera was running. The red light blinked steadily, casting its eerie glow across her son's face as he stood in front of it, motionless, staring into its lens. "What are you doing?" she cried, her voice breaking the silence. He didn't flinch. His eyes didn't move. It was as if he couldn't hear her. His lips parted, whispering something she couldn't catch. She stepped closer, panic surging. "Turn it off," she shouted, rushing forward. Finally, he blinked and turned to face her. His expression was distant, almost hollow. "You don't get it, Mom. It's not dangerous. It's a gift. He left it for me." Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "It's not a gift, it's a curse. That camera takes pieces of you every time you use it, don't you see? That's why he—" She cut herself short, choking on the memory of her husband's last days, his gaunt face, his eyes clouded by secrets he never shared. Her son stepped closer, the red glow painting sharp lines across his face. "You're lying. He trusted me with this. He wanted me to continue his work. You were the one who never understood him." She shook her head, tears welling. "No, you're just afraid. Afraid of the truth, afraid of me." Her voice rose, echoing against the garage walls. "I'm afraid of losing you, can't you see? This thing doesn't give, it takes. Your father thought he was strong enough too, and it destroyed him." For a moment his defiance faltered. His eyes softened the boy she once knew, flickering beneath the anger. But then almost instantly the walls went back up. He shook his head, stepping closer to the camera. "I have to know," he whispered. She lunged forward, grabbing his arm. "No!" He pulled back sharply, his face twisted with rage. "Let go!" The struggle sent the tripod wobbling, the camera nearly toppling to the floor. Both of them gasped, instinctively steadying it at the same time. Their hands met on the cold metal, trembling, each refusing to let go. "You don't understand what he left behind," he growled through gritted teeth, "and I won't let you destroy it." Her voice trembled, but her words were like steel. "You don't understand what he left behind, and I won't let you destroy yourself." The garage filled with silence, thick and suffocating. The only sound was the steady blink of the red light. She looked into her son's eyes, so much like his father's, and her heart broke. She wanted to shake him, to scream, to beg him to listen. But she knew force wouldn't work. She had to reach the boy inside, the one who had once run to her with scraped knees and asked for comfort. "You think this camera will make you closer to him," she said softly, her voice cracking. "But it won't. It'll only take you further away. That's why he left me this letter. That's why he warned me about you." His breath caught. "Letter?" She hesitated, then pulled the folded paper from her pocket. His eyes locked onto it like a hawk. She unfolded it slowly, her hands shaking, and began to read aloud. "If you're reading this, it means I failed. I thought I could control it. I thought I could handle what it showed me, but I was wrong. Don't let him claim it. Don't let our son follow me into this darkness." Her voice cracked on the last words. She lowered the paper, tears streaming down her face. For a long moment, her son didn't speak. His eyes darted from the letter to the camera, then back to her. His chest rose and fell quickly, his mind warring between anger and pain. Finally, he whispered, He wrote that." "Yes," she said, her voice barely audible, "because he loved you, because he knew this would destroy you." The anger in his face melted, replaced by something raw, something broken. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Why didn't he tell me himself?" Her heart shattered. She reached for him, placing a trembling hand on his cheek. "Because he couldn't. Because by the time he realized what he had done, it was too late. But it's not too late for you." His eyes filled with tears, the fight draining from him. He turned toward the camera, then back to her. For the first time, he seemed uncertain, vulnerable. "Then what do we do with it?" he asked quietly. She took a deep breath, glancing at the glowing red light. "We end it together." The two of them stood side by side, staring at the machine that had haunted their family for years. The confrontation wasn't over, but for the first time she saw hope in his eyes. A chance to save him. A chance to finally close the chapter her husband had left unfinished. And in that moment, she knew the final battle wasn't against her son. It was against the darkness the camera carried. For a long moment, the garage was silent. The red glow of the camera pulsed steadily like the beat of a heart, daring them to make a choice. Her son stood rigid, torn between longing and fear, while she gripped the folded letter as though it were a shield. The words still echoed in her mind. Don't let him claim it. Finally, she spoke. We end this tonight. No more secrets, no more shadows. Her son's eyes flickered to the camera. But what if it's not just darkness? What if it shows us something important, something we're meant to see? She shook her head. That's exactly what your father thought. That's how it traps you. It gives just enough to keep you hooked, to keep you believing there's something more. But the price is always too high. He swallowed hard, his fists clenched at his sides. And if you're wrong? Her heart twisted. She wanted to promise him she wasn't to swear that destroying the camera was the only way. But she couldn't lie. If I'm wrong, then we'll never know. And maybe that's mercy. The words hung heavy between them. Slowly, he stepped toward the tripod, his hand hovering above the blinking machine. His face was pale, torn between the man he wanted to be and the boy who still longed for Hechia. His father's voice. Dad trusted me, he whispered. He told me one day I'd understand. What if this is what he meant? Tears blurred her vision, but she steadied her voice. He trusted you enough to warn you. He trusted you enough to leave me that letter. His last act wasn't to pass the burden, it was to beg us to stop it. Her son froze, his shoulders trembling. For the first time, she saw the war inside him, the desire to honor his father's legacy, battling against the fear of repeating his mistakes. Finally, his hand fell to his side. He turned to her, his voice breaking. Then help me. Don't make me do this alone. Relief surged through her chest. She nodded, stepping beside him. Together, they gripped the tripod, their fingers brushing. For a fleeting second, it felt like the family they used to be, united unbroken. But the camera fought back. The hum deepened the red glow, intensifying, spilling shadows across the walls. The lens whirred, adjusting on its own, as if alive. Her son flinched. It doesn't want to stop. She tightened her grip. Then we make it. With a shared cry, they wrenched the tripod from its place, slamming it against the concrete floor. The sound cracked through the garage, loud and final. Sparks shot from the body of the machine, the lens shattering like glass under pressure. For a moment, the glow pulsed brighter, desperate, clinging to life. Then darkness. The hum stopped. The red light went out. They stood frozen, breathing hard, staring at the broken remains. Silence filled the room, not heavy, not hostile, but cleansing. Her son sank to the floor, his face buried in his hands. It's over, he whispered. She knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. For the first time in years, he didn't pull away. He leaned into her, his body shaking with sobs. It's over, she echoed softly, pressing her forehead against his. We're free. But even as she said it, she couldn't ignore the faint unease curling in her chest. Destroying the camera felt final, but she knew the tapes remained. The recordings, the evidence of whatever it had captured, would they still hold power, or had the curse died with the machine? She didn't know, and maybe she never would. But for now, that didn't matter. What mattered was the boy in her arms, the son she had almost lost, not to death, but to obsession. What mattered was the quiet, the peace, the fragile but real sense of redemption that hung in the air. Her husband hadn't been saved. But maybe, just maybe, their son still could be. Her son lifted his head, his eyes red but softer now. I'm sorry, Mom, for everything I said, for not listening. She cupped his face in her hands. There's nothing to be sorry for. You wanted answers. I just wanted to keep you safe. Maybe we both made mistakes, but we fixed this one together. He nodded, his lips trembling with the weight of unspoken words. Then he whispered the ones she never thought she'd hear. Thank you for not giving up on me. Her tears fell freely now, not of grief, but of release. She pulled him into her arms again, holding on as if the embrace itself could anchor them both. The broken camera lay forgotten on the floor, a relic of pain and mystery. Maybe someday others would ask questions. Maybe the tapes would tempt them again. But tonight it was over, and for the first time she allowed herself to believe that redemption, fragile, imperfect, but real, was possible.